Hello everyone, welcome back, and what do you know? Well, it's almost like a few months ago now, isn't it? That's been quite a while since you last saw this. The Optiplex 740 that I bought for a mere £20. And as you may possibly remember it, last time it had quite a few issues, even with a quick and dirty RAM upgrade, a hard drive that I had lying around, and a graphics card that would fit into it. It still barely ran. But things have changed, and today we're going to talk about it. Okay, so what's actually changed then? Well, for a start, this is not the machine that we first started with. Well, it is, but it's not really. For one, the RAM has been upgraded from the gigabyte that it shipped with to now 8 gigabytes, running it at 800 megahertz, because of course it's DDR2. On top of that, we're still using the same graphics card, but this time I do believe I hopefully have a riser on it. I'm not sure if I had the riser last time, so I'm going to mention that anyway. Still the same graphics card, a GT740, which kind of fits, you know, Optiplex 740, GT740, not bad. Not to mention no additional power connectors, so of course, don't have to worry about the power supply too much. What else has changed? Well, for one, I got rid of that hard drive. Why? Because, well, I kind of needed it anyway, and two, because it's nice to go ahead and have a little upgrade every now and then. So it's now actually using a crucial BX500 SSD. On top of that, I finally managed to source out a CPU upgrade. Originally, this was going to get a Phenom X4. Plugged it in, orange light of death, because of course this is annoyingly the motherboard that doesn't have the 8 megabyte chip that it needs in order to actually use that. So instead, we're actually using an Athlon 64X2, I believe it's a 5600 plus, running at a whopping, well, I say whopping, a mediocre 2.8 gigahertz. It is a dual core, however, though, so it's quite an improvement over the original single core. And, well, what can I say? It games now, like, for real this time. Granted, last time I managed to open a couple of pretty low spec games that it should have been able to run anyway. But now it can run some modern titles. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be perfect. Especially with modern day AAA releases, it's not going to run at all due to the fact that the CPU just doesn't have the required... I'm trying to think what it is. The required coding or instruction sets on it in order to actually run modern games. So something like Forza Horizon 4, as well as a couple other ones, I think Far Cry 5 as well, it won't actually run at all. Not saying that you should anyway, running them on a dual core is slightly stupid to say the least. Yeah. So, what else? Well, as you remember, a while back I did a GTX 480 review. I'll leave it up in the corner, hopefully. Well, I decided that I'm going to start doing standardized benchmark tests, and it ran most of them. Like I said, that little missing instruction set meant that a couple of tests I couldn't do, as well as another test. Things are complicated. For the most part, though, it ran pretty much perfectly well. It managed to play War Thunder, Dirt Rally. It ran GTA 5. I'm trying to think, what else do I have here? Tomb Raider. Oh yeah, Tomb Raider actually ran pretty damn well. That one I was surprised at. I'll get into the actual results later on. But of course, we also went and did my usual 3D Mark, Firestrike and Time Spy, Cinebench R15, and of course my OCCT burn-in test, which it went pretty well, but there was a slight problem. The way that I do my OCCT burn-in test is I use AVX2 instructions to really push the CPU to its limit. Problem, it hasn't got the capability to do any AVX instructions at all, let alone AVX2. So of course I had to take that off, so this isn't quite a fully representative test of what it could do at the absolute worst, but it's probably the worst this one could do. And a little side note, when I say it ran GTA 5, it's ran GTA 5 in the sense that it loaded, it played the benchmark, it just, when you're playing it, probably due to the fact that it's only a dual core or it's missing an instruction set somewhere that speeds it up, as long as you're fine with playing GTA 5 out either buildings, the ground, vehicles, or pretty much any of the assets loading in, as long as you're fine with it being like that, it's brilliant. It plays GTA 5 like a dream. If you do, however, actually want to see what the hell you're doing, however, no, you can't play GTA 5 even remotely. And I guess I should probably get into those benchmarks. Alright then, so let's start off then with our OCCT burn-in test, all the more CPU based ones, well, more CPU heavy ones first, why not? So starting off then, the CPU and GPU temps were actually pretty reasonable. The CPU running at 64 degrees Celsius and the GPU sitting at a fairly average 69 degrees, which isn't bad at all. On top of that, the actual average FPS, because I believe it is a 1080p that I go ahead and run the 3D version of it, was running at around 11, which is, well, a third of what the GTX 480 got and probably a lot less than what most modern cards would get. Running 3D Mark V Strike, well, it didn't run well. Starting off then with our graphics score, of course this is running a GT 740 and understandably that got a pretty decent score, sitting at 2119. Obviously it's not brilliant, it's not a very high frame rate as a result of that, but still not bad. The physics score was sitting at 1665 and of course our combined score for the final test was 813, giving us a total score of 1763. Or in other words, around about 1/10 what my actual main PC can get. So it's not terrible, but it's still not brilliant. But to be fair, we weren't expecting brilliant considering the fact that this machine has cost me well under £100 to build. Moving on to Time Spy, however, you know that little missing instruction set, little niggling little issue? Yeah, DNF did not have the instruction set required. I think it's SSE2 that it requires to run at all. It doesn't have it, so I couldn't run the test. So that one gets a flat 0. Moving on to the Cinebench R15 test then, because I like that one for the fact that it runs both OpenGL as well as CPU-based tests. Well, starting off with the good part, OpenGL. It managed to achieve an average frame rate of 37.63 FPS. It got a 99.6% match, which is around about average. Its multi-threaded performance was 120, which is actually a bit of an improvement over its original when I first tested it using, I think it was either 5GB of RAM. Again, that's not perfect, but it's still better than nothing. Because, to be fair, even a mobile i3 today is going to outperform that by, well, a substantial margin. And as for its single core, 62. Yeah, not 162, not 200, 62. That's all you get. Take it or leave it. In short, if you're doing any CPU heavy work, so video, rendering, complex scientific work, or hell, even just high definition by YouTube playback cam, this is not the CPU for you. Not brilliant, it's not great, I do not recommend it, but as just a basic machine to just get a PC at all, it's not bad. For basic internet browsing and maybe even some light gaming, it's pretty good. Moving on then to gaming. Tomb Raider, surprisingly, got an average 30 FPS. Yeah, an average 31.1 FPS on Tomb Raider. Not the old Tomb Raider, as in the Tomb Raider reboot Tomb Raider, one that's kind of pretty anyway. Same settings that I use on the GTX 480, which got over 70 FPS, so the fact that it's only about half the performance, despite being a lot cheaper to build than the machine that was in, I'd say that's not too bad. It's actually got a fairly reasonable max FPS of 44.7, and oh no, that 31 was its that was its minimum FPS. Never mind, it got 38 FPS, which is again a lot higher than I thought for its average. Yeah, I can do this, I swear. Dirt Rally. So of course Dirt Rally, known for basically running on anything, and it did run pretty well. Of course it did have a couple of issues of having a very poor minimum FPS of only 15, a very high, an acceptable max FPS of 40, and a pretty solid average of a hair under 30 FPS. It managed to render a total of 6,124 frames. Again, not bad, not brilliant, pretty average, bit middling. Moving on to my selection for my esports, because it's the only one that has an inbuilt benchmark that I like to use, War Thunder. Starting off then with the Pacific War Day benchmark test. Well, it ran pretty well, getting an average of 64.2 FPS. Again, not bad, that's perfectly playable, considering that if you're buying a machine this cheap, or building a machine this cheap, you're probably not going to have a 120Hz monitor. Again, it'd be nice to have higher than that, so you've got some breathing room and you'll avoid some frame drops, but 64, I think that's not bad. Its minimum FPS was 36.8, again, that's quite a big frame drop, but it's still not what I'd go into the unplayable category. And got a total rating of 14,713. Again, about half of what you get on a GTX 480. Moving on to the Battle of Berlin, it got an average FPS of 56.1 and a minimum FPS of 40.6. And for the Battle of Berlin, it also got a rating of 5220. Moving on to the Tank Battle benchmark, it got a 47.8 for its average FPS, which is, again, less than what you'd like, but still better than nothing. A minimum FPS of 38 and a rating of 2977. And what I do believe is our final one for this, you got an average FPS of 58.3 on the Eastern Front benchmark, along with a minimum FPS of 44.7 and a rating of 57.99. Again, generally speaking, yes, it has a couple of frame drops here and there, but 60 FPS at 1080p medium settings War Thunder, I think that's pretty playable. You know, keep in mind, we're talking about a PC here that costs less than, well, even a used console. I'm pretty sure that you can go ahead and get this for maybe half of what it costs in the UK currently for a used Xbox One, which really isn't bad. And I don't mean Xbox One S or Xbox One X, I mean Xbox One. It's about half the price. Yet it can actually play everything at 1080p medium settings to a degree. Don't get me wrong, there are going to be some niggling little bits looking at GTA 5, of course. I'm just going to discount all of that ones because it'd be a bit unfair to throw it in. I'm going to class it as a DNF because if it's not going to load the assets, it's very unfair to say that it played the game. What is it good for then? Well, if you like some more lighter esports titles, excluding CSGO, because CSGO, due to the CPU being a little bit terrible, regardless of the settings, you're locked to around about 60 FPS and can drop down to about 15 FPS if there's smoke on screen, regardless of what settings you use. You could set it to 1080p Ultra and it will still have the same problem. You can set it to 1080p minimum and it will still have the same problem. It's not the graphics card that's holding it back, it's that CPU. So you can play CSGO, but I wouldn't recommend it simply due to the very low frame rate, but hey, if you're willing to put up with it, go for it, that's your choice. But other games, let's say World of Warship, something that I love to play quite a bit, it actually ran pretty well. Sitting at an average 30 to 60 FPS in battle, only getting that 30 FPS when there is a lot of smoke effects or a lot of different assets on screen, I'd say that's pretty damn well. You know, again, 1080p medium settings. Various other games as well, it runs extremely well. Stuff like Team Fortress 2, Portal, pretty much most esports or very light or even older games, it is a brilliant machine for playing. So if you've got, say, you haven't played Steam in ages, or you've got an old laptop that you've got a load of weak games on anyway, because hey, it's the games that you can run, this would actually be a half decent upgrade. Sometimes. I'm not recommending this over a good laptop, of course, because a good laptop is still going to outperform this by quite a lot in various other tasks. Moving on to other things that I've noticed about this machine then. I tell you what, despite the fact that this thing is absolutely ancient and you'd imagine it to have some pretty terrible hardware, Gigabit Ethernet is pretty damn nice to have. Like, granted, it's got Ethernet that is faster than the SATA 2 connection it's got on the motherboard, so you can't even write to your hard drive or your SSD in this case as fast as that, but still, it's gigabit, nice to have, not going to complain. The other really surprisingly nice thing is the onboard audio. And no, I don't mean for using the Nvidia one. I mean if you go ahead and use the headphone jacks on this, or even go ahead and plug it up to a speaker, it's actually a really good machine. In fact, I actually ended up using quite often essentially a really big MP3 player whilst I'm doing stuff, because it works. It's nice, it sits on the desk, you know, just put a little Bluetooth speaker on the top of it, just go ahead and use an AUX cable to plug it in, or maybe even a Bluetooth USB adapter. And hey, what do you know, it's actually really good. I generally kind of recommend it for that, which is probably not the thing that I should be recommending for a PC, but there you go, it's something that you can do. And well, yeah, so what else is there to say? Is it worth it? I'd say maybe. if you are desperate, and I mean desperate, to get into PC gaming and you have not got a large budget at all, like you have got next to nothing, this isn't a bad choice. It's not a brilliant choice, don't get me wrong, but it's not a bad choice. Because you can pick up an Optiplex for next to nothing. You can probably get a much better Optiplex than this now. Because to be fair, the second generation or third generation, whichever ones they are, the ones that have that sort of nice slanted design on the front, yeah, they run i3, i5s and i7s. Throw in a half decent graphics card and you should be having a really good time. So it's still a very viable option. And to be fair, I'd probably might even go ahead and do a follow-up with using a far more modern Optiplex. So, value, it's there. It has its purpose. It's more of if you're desperate rather than if you're willing to put in anything. But it is there as a value option. Maintenance-wise, I actually really like it. I'm not sure how it is on the new Optiplexes, but having the ability to just literally just slide that on the back and have the panel drop down and get to everything, it's really nice. Practically everything in this machine is toolless and easy to remove, which means, say you, for whatever reason, need to change out the drive because it's, for some reason, died. It's quite as simple as pop the side panel off, use a little slide that you go ahead and use to take out the disk drive, and there you are, you're straight to either the hard drive or even the floppy disk if you have one installed because you're living in 1993 or for some reason. But even still, it's nice. Brilliant for maintenance. I think the only thing that you can't really get to without a screwdriver would be the CPU, but to be fair, how often do you change a CPU? Not often. Of course, you change it when you first get it, you know. But bar that, it's really nice. I do recommend an SSD for this. It's not going to make a huge performance over a good hard drive, and I do mean a good, like, high-end-ish hard drive, but it's still better than nothing. Even the BX500, which doesn't even have a DRAM cache, this works perfectly well. It's a lot more snappy, it loads up a heck of a lot quicker, and granted, you're still limited to that 125 megabytes at most reads and writes, but that's not a problem really. It still does its job well enough. So, yeah, that's where we are. I've upgraded it. It works. It's actually a really good machine. I might go ahead and keep this around genuinely, like a very light LAN party game, you know, kind of thing. You know, install Halo or something, because Halo especially, it's way too much fun on it. Way too much fun. And as you can see, I've already managed to go ahead and install a load of games on there that I thought would run, because they do run. They run pretty damn well. They're quite nice to play. And yeah, that's what I can say about it. So, hopefully I've been sliding some B-roll footage in and out of this, hopefully constantly, to keep you guys entertained, so you don't want to be looking at me for half an hour doing various other things. But yeah, I upgraded a Dell. It works pretty well. I recommend that you guys try this at home at some point if you've got some money to spend, because hey, we're all in the middle of a pandemic and we've got nothing else better to do. Or if you're just living that and it's like, oh, I really need a gaming PC, but I really need a PC, let's cut off the word gaming for it, but I can't really do much right now because I don't have like a couple of £100 to build one. Even if you factor in the cost of a half-decent graphics card like a GT 740 or something maybe a little lower end that this would work better with, it's still only barely over £100, maybe 120, 130, so about $150 for a PC. That's not bad considering how low effort it is. The most you have to buy is a PCIe riser, or even not even that. You know, granted, it does mean a little bit of finessing, and it might look a bit ugly without a PCIe riser, but it works well enough. And hey, isn't that what you want? Something that works well enough, that lets you browse the internet, stay up to date with your friends, use Discord or whatever. Who are you to complain? But I think that's probably where I'm going to have to call it for this video, so I'll slide in some extra B-roll, hopefully around about here, and well, that's where I'm going to cap it. This has been a fun little adventure. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys also enjoy my attempts at probably some terrible B-roll, like always. And until then, well, I guess it's time for me to say, anyway, like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, leave any thoughts or questions in the form of a comment down below. Don't forget to check out my Facebook, Patreon and Twitch pages, all in the description down below. And of course, hit that subscribe and notification bell to stay up to date for more content from me, the 117th Con. And well, as always, this has been the 117th con. I've had a blast. I hope you guys have a brilliant day. Stay home, stay safe, folks. I can't even talk today. Have a brilliant time. I'll catch you all next time. Until then, ta-ra.